Avowed is an RPG by Obsidian Entertainment, and despite having a great track record of games like The Outer Worlds, for example, or Pillars of Eternity, or even the biggest one, Fallout New Vegas, I think their next upcoming title is in a lot of trouble. But before we get into it, thank you guys so much for 790 subscribers. If you're new to the channel and you like gaming news and gaming reviews, specifically with action-adventure games or RPGs, please subscribe and like the video. If you like what you see here, I would really appreciate it. It helps me out a lot. Now let's get into the video. Avowed was initially announced all the way back about 4 years ago with a trailer that seemed to be relatively dark in tone, and a trailer overall that got a lot of people excited. And people got even more excited when knowing this game was going to be a single player first-person RPG, something Obsidian Entertainment does relatively well, specifically with The Outer Worlds, as well as Fallout New Vegas, like I mentioned. And this one was actually going to be in the fantasy setting as well, which kind of put a lot of people's minds directly to, is this going to be their quote-unquote version of the Elder Scrolls? But after this initial trailer, everything else that the Obsidian Entertainment team has shown has been a lot different. The whole tone of the game as a whole seems to be a lot more Marvel-like or Disney-like, or kind of similar to what Dragon Age the Veilguard was in that type of tone, which doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a bad game, but they definitely misrepresented what we were going to be seeing after that first trailer from putting that first trailer out initially. But as the game has gotten closer to release, we have now seen a lot more of what this game has to offer, and it's definitely a far departure in the tone that they tried to represent with their initial trailer of this game and with the announcement of this game as a whole. But again, that is not to say this game is going to be bad. We have seen relatively good things about this game in different gameplay previews, like the one from IGN, for example, where the characters seem to have a lot of different personality. There seems to be a lot of different choices and consequences based on your actions or your decisions as a character. Now, who knows if those are going to be really meaningful in the long term or throughout the entire game as a whole. But also, we saw the combat, which I don't think looked very good. I think it kind of looks like the Elder Scrolls combat, where it lacks a little bit of impact and definitely is a combat system that needs innovated on, but we haven't seen too much of this, so who knows if this is going to be good or bad. But overall, the game looks relatively good. But around the same time of this gameplay preview, we also got some more unfortunate news, where Avowed is only going to be targeting 30 FPS on console, specifically the Xbox console. And that's something that's a huge bummer, at least to me. I know a lot of people don't necessarily care about this, and they're fine with playing games at 30 FPS, specifically single-player games where they're not like a competitive shooter or something like that. But in my opinion, we're almost in 2025. Every game at the bare minimum, again, in my personal opinion, needs to be at least targeting the 60 FPS mark. So with all of this, you're probably thinking, well, the game looks pretty good. It's by a company with a good track record. Yes, it might only be at 30 FPS, and yes, it might have a different tone than that was represented in the initial trailer, but this game doesn't seem like it's going to be a total failure because, again, it's a new single-player, first-person RPG by Obsidian Entertainment. But then it leads to the biggest reason, at least in my opinion, and the main reason that this game could be in a lot of trouble. Avowed is coming out in February of 2025. Now, if you are somebody that isn't necessarily looking at the gaming calendar and what upcoming games are coming out and when they are coming out, you might not notice this, but for me, who is always talking about games, specifically RPGs, this month as a whole is one of the most packed months of huge games that we have seen in a relatively long time. It almost seems like it's an October release and a Broketober release month because of how many big games are coming out in February of next year, potentially, in my opinion, trying to dodge fall 2025 with GTA 6 releasing. So what games are coming out in February of 2025? Well, the first game, which is on February 11th, that is coming out, is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, set to be the most anticipated, potentially, RPG of next year, aside from something like Crimson Desert. And then, the same exact day, you have Civilization 7, which, again, completely different genre, but it's definitely going to take some people away from playing Avowed that month, because they're not going to be finished with that game within the next couple weeks. And then, 3 days later, although there's not a ton of people excited for this game, I think the casual gamers definitely are, and fans of this franchise definitely are, Assassin's Creed Shadows comes out on February 14th. So those are all three really big games that are going to be coming out that are going to be taking people's time away from Avowed, because Avowed then releases only 4 days after Shadows on February 18th. But then, directly after Avowed comes out, 3 days later, you have the new Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, which is set to be a relatively big release next year. And then, the biggest release, other than probably Grand Theft Auto 6 of next year, is coming out, at least in my opinion, and what's going to take up hundreds of my hours, is Monster Hunter Wilds, dropping 10 days after Avowed on February 28th. So from the gamer's perspective, in my opinion, I think a lot of people are going to choose these other games over Avowed. Me specifically, I'm definitely going to put most of my time in this month to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and definitely Monster Hunter Wilds. And I'm still going to review Assassin's Creed Shadows as well, although I'm definitely the least excited for that game out of the other two that I just mentioned. So I don't know how many gamers are going to even have time to play Avowed with all of these big games releasing in the same month. And from a content creator perspective, what am I going to spend my time playing? Am I going to spend my time making videos about Avowed, or am I going to spend time making videos about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and Monster Hunter Wilds? I'm probably not going to talk very much about Avowed because of all the other gigantic games that are coming out, not to mention Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I'm definitely going to make a review on. I'm going to make videos on because that's one of the most controversial games in the entire world right now, and it's not even out. So I'm going to be curious to see if this is the next Ubi flop, or this is the first success for Ubisoft in a while, given the delays and how determined this team needs to be to make sure this is the best game possible, because their company is literally on the line here. So what I'm afraid of here is Avowed is just going to kind of get lost in the sauce here, with gamers and content creators potentially prioritizing all of these other games instead, and it's going to be kind of falling into the same Titanfall curse that we've seen, where that game was releasing between Battlefield as well as Call of Duty, just two games that are bigger with already huge audiences that are going to play those instead. And even if Avowed ends up being a good game, I don't think it's going to get the attention that it might deserve because of everything else that is surrounding it within the month of February. But obviously, we're not going to know until February of next year, and it's definitely a bummer because I think Obsidian Entertainment as a whole, like I mentioned, has a pretty good track record, is a relatively good company, and has some pretty good damn games under their belt as a whole. But thank you guys for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Let me know down in the comments if this is a game that you are going to find time to make sure you play, or you're more excited for some of the other games that are going to be coming out in this month and you're going to wait to play Avowed or potentially not play at all. I would love to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments. Like this video if you like the video, and subscribe for more content like this. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.